jury in.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And while they're coming in, did council get the proposed jury instruction? Okay. You had a chance to look at them at all yet? Okay. You may be seated. Mr. O'Farrell, you may begin your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, as far as the arrangements to interview Lisa Curtis and Davion Thompson on the 30th, do you know if that was initiated by the police or by Ms. Curtis?
Detective Wortley had reached out to her, had made contact and requested that she come in.
And then how was it that Davion got into the picture?
At some point, Lisa had recontacted Detective Wortley, advised that she was going to be running a little late because she was stopping off to pick up Davion Thompson.
Okay. And then in fact, when you went down to the lobby, when you were told that the witnesses had arrived, they were both there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's consistent with the arrangements that have been made?
Yes,
And would it be fair to say you were immediately surprised that Davion Thompson was wearing a light blue mask?
yes, I was.
And do you know if you had conveyed or if it had been conveyed by other detectives to Lisa that whoever was driving her Dodge Charger involved in this shooting was wearing a mask?
Had she known prior to that? Is that what the question is?
Do you know if she knew or
I
not?
do not know if she knew that prior.
Okay. But she makes the arrangements to stop, pick up Davion and bring him. And when he comes in, lo and behold, he's wearing a light blue mask.
That is correct.
Now, you separated them, which is the standard practice. You don't ever interview witnesses together except in extreme circumstances. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you got more than one interview room over there at the police station.
Yes, we do.
So when you interviewed Davion, and we've seen the video of that, which is accurate, right?
Yes, it is.
Do you remember him being asked what his phone number was?
I think I was out of the room at that time.
I do too, frankly. But you viewed the video today. Did you catch the phone number that he gave?
I did not, but I believe I have it logged in my binder.
I mean, just maybe to save some time, I took it down as 4430029.
I know it started with a 443.
Okay. Certainly it wasn't the phone number that you've given your testimony about from the Sprint records. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Was the phone number 4430029 or whatever the number was that he gave, Was that ever checked for its records?
No,
Davion Thompson indicated that he had borrowed the black Charger. Is that correct?
yes, he did.
Basically in agreement with the information provided also by Lisa Curtis.
That she admitted that she allowed him to? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
And he said also that he was trying to do an interview, open interviews at Jimmy John's restaurant to get a job. Is that correct?
Correct.
But he couldn't do so because he just wasn't well enough to do it.
That's what he advised.
And that was Monday of the week that we've seen the doctor testify from Covenant Hospital about when he had described his mono really kicking in bad for him. Is that right?
Trying to do the math here. I think that would have been on the 22nd when he wanted to go. So whatever day, January 22nd, 2018 was, that would have been the day. I don't know if that was Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. Certainly we know that Mr. Parham was killed on the 27th.
Correct.
So 5 days before.
5 days prior.
And Davion described going and getting the car at a location in on the south side of Saginaw.
Correct.
And he wasn't really very specific. He talked about Grant and Yeomans, and you pointed out that those two streets run in the same direction.
Yes.
And then he tried to specify, and he got specified it was a parking lot in that area. Is that right?
Yes, he did.
And he said he also returned the car to that area after he really couldn't complete the interview at Jimmy John's.
That's what he advised.
Now, you're familiar with that south side area of Saginaw generally, are you not?
Yes, I've worked in the city for 22 years. I know the streets down there.
Is that considered to be a high crime area?
It is.
Is it considered to be an area of high drug activity?
Not as much over the past few years, but yes, it is known for drug activity.
Now, you heard Lisa Curtis testify that in that time frame, she was taking prescription opioid medications for which she did not have a prescription.
Narco, I believe. And then she had a prescription for, I can't remember what the name of it was. And if she said a third one, I can't remember what the name of that was either.
Well, she described two names, but she also indicated she was taking opioids without a prescription. Did you hear that?
Did she say that she was taking specifically opioids or was it narco? I can't recall. I remember her
Okay.
saying narco.
Then we'll let the jury remember what she said. Now, opioid medications, if you don't get them through a prescription, you get them illegally. Is that correct?
Yes,
So she was obtaining opioid medications. We would be talking pills.
correct.
Okay. Opioid pills without a prescription, she'd be getting them somewhere.
Yeah, she doesn't have a script.
I'll withdraw it.
Okay. Any objection?
Now, when you got into the case, did you become aware of information that she had provided to Detective Wortley concerning who she suspected to be the shooter of her son, Brandon?
Not until a long time until one of our court hearings.
Okay. So you didn't do any investigation of that particular lead or the information that was contained in what she had provided to Detective Wortley?
No, my assignment on that homicide, which would have been the Brandon Pennywell homicide, I was the evidence tech for that. Basically, I processed the scene, seized whatever evidence was on scene on the day of, secured it in packaging, and had it tagged into our property room at the Saginaw Police Department. And then the extent of my involvement in that case was basically over.
And have you reviewed that information since the Facebook paperwork that she had forwarded to Detective Wortley?
Not since the last time you showed me.
Okay. Okay. The information that she forwarded, which she described as getting from Jamel, said that he had paid 3 clucks who gave him the same name or gave him the same name. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay. And Ms. Curtis testified her understanding of a cluck would be like a dope fiend. Would you
Correct.
agree with that?
correct. Yes, somebody that uses illegal narcotics, crackhead would be another term.
Crackhead is mostly associated with crack.
Correct. Same type of thing, though. I mean, a cluck could be a crackhead. That could just be their drug of choice.
Well, there are other drugs of choice,
There is.
including opioids.
Correct. There's lots of drugs out there.
Okay. And have you ever heard the term cluck car?
I have.
Can you tell the jury what a cluck car is?
Basically, that would be a slang term for someone who would make a deal with a drug dealer. Instead of paying cash for their drug, they would allow the drug dealer to use their vehicle as payment for whatever specific drug they're looking for. And then the street term would be, that would be a cluck car.
And Davion described to you having picked up the car in southeast or on the south side of Saginaw and returned it there. And you have no way of knowing whether that's true or not, do you?
Correct.
Was Camelot Apartments ever checked or investigated as far as management as to the cars that their tenant, Lisa Curtis, was authorized to have and take up parking spaces at their location?
No.
You have no way of knowing when the last time that a Dodge would have been at Camelot Apartments at any point, do you?
No.
Now, if you recall, Davion indicated that when he asked Lisa to use the car so that he could attend the interview, he said that she said everybody else is using it. Remember him saying that?
Yes, I do.
You have no way of knowing whether that's true or not, do you?
That's just what she said. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Now, Lisa described giving a telephone that had been owned by her, but she let her son Brandon use. After Brandon was killed, she gave it to Davion, correct?
No, Davion had the phone prior to the death of Brandon. Brandon was the one that ended up giving it to him because Brandon went and got a new phone.
Okay. So that was even before Brandon's death, obviously.
Correct.
Okay. And you've described that phone as being associated with Davion Thompson.
Yes.
And would you agree it's associated with the Washington Street address?
His residence, you're talking? Davion's residence.
Yes.
I can only guess that he would have it there when he's at home during the time that he would have received it from Brandon.
Do you know whether other folks in the house would have used it?
I couldn't say one way or the other.
Okay. You wanted very much to see what the response of Davion would be when you asked him if he knew Antonio Parham, correct?
Yes.
That was of high interest.
A high interest. What do you mean? by
High
that?
interest.
High interest?
Mhm.
I wanted to see if he knew him.
And he said he did.
He did. Grew up next to him.
And he described having had communication with him, like within the last, he said he thought it was about the 15th or 17th. Remember
16th
that?
or 17th, yes. You're talking January, right?
Yeah.
Of 2018. Yes.
And in fact, you found communications on that cell phone from the 21st and 22nd.
Correct.
The communications describe discussions about smoking marijuana together. Is that a general accurate statement?
Yes.
That's certainly what the two communicators were interested in.
On that date, yes.
And that's what Davion had told you.
To a degree, yes.
He told you they communicated, but he didn't show up.
He said they communicated through Facebook Messenger and denied having his cell phone number, which isn't the case.
So he admitted the communication, but he had the means of the communication incorrect.
No, he lied because I specifically asked him if he had the victim's cell phone number and he denied having it.
Now, you had the information that he had in fact lost the phone number that you associated with him. Is that correct?
He claimed he lost it, yes.
Did Lisa Curtis also say that he had told her he had lost it?
Yes.
She changed her testimony in front of this jury, right?
From initial, yes. From our initial interview, yes.
Okay. She had described having to communicate with Davion by Facebook and also utilizing a phone of Garland Davis. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
When you confronted Davion towards the end of the interview, you told him that you knew that he knew where Parham lived. Do you remember saying that?
That I knew that he knew.
Yeah.
Trying to think of how that played out. Yes, that would be accurate.
You had information from Lisa that Davion knew where Antonio Parham lived. Is that correct?
Trying to think if she actually told us or I can't remember if she actually said specifically an address or knew just a general area being Bloomfield. I don't know one way or the other.
you recall her testifying today that she had changed her story about that.
In regards to knowing an address,
Yeah. We can leave it to the jury.
okay, because I can't recall if she specifically said that wordage, or I don't want to give bad information.
And I appreciate that. Now, one factor that leads you to believe that the person communicating from the phone associated, in your terminology, with Davion on the 21st and 22nd is that they use the term main streets. Is that correct?
That terminology did come up. I don't recall if it was the 21st and 22nd or if that was in the 27th conversation. It had come up in the conversating back and forth.
You've never heard anyone describe their knowledge of an area as saying, I know the main streets, but I don't know much else about it? You've never heard that?
I guess the best way I can describe it is I've been a training officer in the city before and I've trained people. And I always tell them to learn the main streets first and then worry about specific neighborhoods. As far as like a conversation like you're asking me, not.
Well, you're
Not really.
training cops.
Right.
No. I would suggest to you, and this, I'll make it kind of a personal hypothetical. I'm roughly familiar with Bay City. I know Washington, I know Broadway, I know the streets with the bridges. I know the main streets. And I've been saying that all my life. You've never heard anybody other than the people in training that you tell they learn the main streets first? You've never heard that?
I guess, I'm not in a specific conversation that I can pull from my memory.
Okay.
I'm sure it does happen, but me specifically, what you're asking me, no.
Okay. On the 27th, the timing of the communications between these two phones goes right up to the time of the reported homicide of Antonio Parham, correct?
I think the last one was 12:25, and I believe our 911 call came in at 12:30, so within that 5-minute gap.
And as it narrows down, it focuses and finally gets the location of 522 South Bonham, correct?
Yes, sir.
It certainly appeared from the conversation that the person who was seeking Mr. Parham, Ms. Parham, didn't know how to find him, didn't know exactly where he was until it was disclosed by Parham himself. Would you agree with that?
The exact venue, yes.
Okay. When you, the black Dodge was located and seized, and then you searched it, is that right?
Yes.
And was any effort made to look for fingerprints on that vehicle?
No.
You certainly had some information that it had been used at some point by Davion Thompson, is that correct?
Correct.
You had information that it was driven at the time of the shooting by the shooter, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you agree to that keep a car on the road while you're driving, you need to at least touch the steering wheel?
Yes.
would you agree that presumably you touched the shifter, the handle, getting in and out at the very least?
Yes,
Did you make any effort to check those as far as fingerprints or DNA contribution?
no,
You eventually finally submitted the gun site for DNA analysis, correct?
yes,
And that was like a year after the incident?
yes. I think that was in 2019.
But eventually you did.
Correct.
And the report indicates multi-contributors as far as leaving DNA, correct?
Yes,
When you searched the basement, I'll call it bedroom, at Washington, was there any clothing in there?
like I said, it was pretty disarray. It almost looked like it was used more towards storage than anything. Any clothing kind of just blended in with everything else that was down there. If there was any, I can't say one way or the other.
Okay. Was there a bed?
I don't even recall if there was a bed.
You don't recall.
No, truthfully.
Isn't it usual practice to take pictures of a location that's being searched?
I believe somebody would have took pictures, yes.
Are there any pictures available in the investigation in this case?
Some pictures of the items that were seized,
But nothing of where they were seized from?
the location that they were. There should have been pictures.
Well, the close-up.
Correct.
Hang on just a moment, Your Honor. Honor, I have no further questions for the detective.
Anything else, Mr. Fedora?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective, is there a reason why there wasn't an effort to lift plans, Bob, for DNA in the Charger?
He already admitted to being in the Dodge Charger, so his DNA and his fingerprints would obviously be there.
Mr. O'Farrell just referred to the DNA analysis, correct?
Yes,
And you weren't the person who analyzed the DNA, correct?
no,
He was a forensic scientist with the Michigan State Police Lab, correct?
that person would have done it, yes.
Okay. But he asked you if there was multiple contributors found, correct?
Yes,
But the defendant, from the report you received, was the primary contributor, correct?
correct.
And she'll testify to that later on in the trial, correct?
Yes.
All right. Nothing further.
Anything else, Mr. O'Farrell?
Judge.
You may step down, Detective Jacobs.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long day. Let's go home. Once again, we'll talk about the case with anyone this evening or watch any news reports involving it. Have a pleasant evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. All right. May be seated. Record should reflect the jury is not present at this time. Anything for the record, Mr. Fedora?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Farrell? And Mr. Fedora, how many more witnesses do you have?
Well, 2 live testimony, Grell Rousseau and Detective Khan, and then the video recording of the testimony from Nicole Graham.
Okay. And Mr. O'Farrell, with regard to your witnesses, do you intend to call anyone?
I'm leaning more towards not.
Okay. I'm thinking those 3 witnesses will take up most of the morning.
I think they'll probably take a little longer than that. Got that presentation of Khan, takes forever.
Agree with you there.
And then the video of the DNA, that was about 55 minutes.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see where we're at lunchtime tomorrow, Mr. O'Farrell, with regard to what you're going to do in terms of presenting any witnesses.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Stand